100%. Ready to go. But why don't we talk about some final score predictions for this game? We just laid everything out. We broke everything down. I mean, how do you see this game playing out? I just talked about how it'll probably be a big part of it will be whoever is the Arizona's quarterback. But the line right now is 7 points in favor of Colorado. So the Wildcats are underdogs in this one. It's also their first home game since their season opener against USC a couple weeks ago. So. And I don't know. Arizona's had a ton of success against Colorado in the past. They don't beat a lot of teams very often, but they have had a lot of success against the Buffs more times than not. But obviously that was a completely different team, and this is a new Colorado squad now, so things are certainly different. But how do you see this one playing out?
I mean, I think we're definitely going to see, a very defensive battle. Because while Colorado has managed to get the job done in the 3 games that they've played and stuff, it's really come largely from their defense. I mean, against San Diego State last week, their defense is what kept them in the game and ended up sort of saving them. I mean, Carl Durrell even said so in his post-game presser that he was like, our defense stepped up huge when our offense was having trouble getting things going. And, the main, bit of offense that we ended up giving San Diego State was because Sam Neuer threw a pick 6 and then they turned that in for 7 and then kicked a field goal on top of that. But so our defense is what kept us in that game, and I expect our defense to keep us in this game again, because while we've got aspects of our offensive side of the ball that are beginning to excel. None of them, they still only have 3 games maximum sort of under their belt, and it's funky. And so I definitely expect it to be a very sort of just a defensive battle on both sides, potentially a little bit of a sloppy game, on the offensive side of the ball for both teams. And so I predicted probably a lower score. And I would. My score prediction would be in the ballpark of like a 24-10 or 24-7 Buffs win. If it were, if it were my very unprofessional prediction. But how about yourself?
I don't really know about this one. I think if Grant Gunnell ends up playing tomorrow, I think it'll be a little bit more of a competitive game. But I really don't think he's going to play. I think Kevin Sumlin has really kept that one close to the chest, and I think that injury is a lot worse than what they're making it out to be. He's been very secretive about what the injury actually is, but we've seen that injury before. When you get tackled and you land on that throwing shoulder, that's a broken collarbone almost every single time, right? So I think this is a bigger injury than what Kevin Sumlin is making it out to be. So I expect Will Plummer to start this game again, the freshman coming in. I thought he did all right last week. I mean, especially for being a true freshman and just being thrown out there on the second play of the game. I don't think he expected that to happen at all. Sure, he threw 2 interceptions, but those 2 interceptions were late in the fourth quarter when the game was already done. I called that game quits as soon as Arizona botched that field goal hold, where they fumbled the field goal. The game was over as soon as that happened. So he threw those 2 picks after that play had happened. So you can't really blame him for that. I think the stats looked a lot worse than how he actually played, but I don't really know. It's so crazy because I had pinned this game as just an automatic win at the start of the season for Arizona. I thought Colorado was the only team that was worse than Arizona coming in this season. I was looking at this team. They got a new head coach. They're going to have a new quarterback, and one of them's a former safety. I thought they were just going to have a ton of problems, and Arizona has had success against Colorado in the past. So I didn't think much of this game, but now I'm looking at this team, and I'm seeing that the Buffs are 3-0, and Arizona's 0-3, just going completely different directions. I don't know anymore. I think what scares me the most about this game is, the run game, like you talked about earlier. I think Jarek Richard is very good, and Arizona has not had very good success against good running backs and against good run games this season. I thought they did a solid job against USC, but, they're not much of a run offense, right? They're very much air raid and, inside zones to Stephen Carr, nothing too crazy there. But, they got torched by Washington, who obviously has one of the best running games in the conference. Demetric Felton last week tore us apart. They just don't have good success against good running backs and against good running games. And I think Jarek Richard is another really good running back. So that scares me the most. I just think that this is going to be another one of those games where Arizona just gets torched on the ground, and they're not going to be able to control this game. They're just going to get ran all over. But after listening to you talk about Colorado's secondary, I might be a little more optimistic about their passing game. But I think defense wins games, right? And I think the defense actually played well last week against UCLA. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think Arizona's defense is playing better than Arizona's offense right now. I would have never thought that would be happening. But I think this game is going to be won by the defense, like you were just saying. And I think the run game really, really makes me nervous. So I think Colorado also covers the spread here. Tough because I don't know if home or away really makes too much of a difference, being a home game with no fans, but I don't really know. I think Colorado covers the spread in this one, but the Pac-12 is so wacky, right? Like we see crazy things happen every single week. So maybe Arizona pulls this one out, but I have no idea really.
I mean, you never know what kind of whether there's a day of test, like positive COVID test or something of that nature. I mean, we saw it with Stanford and Oregon, right? The Davis Mills, tested positive like day of the game, and then it was like, everything, and then everything's just like thrown out the window, right? And so I think the one thing that I think Colorado will bring into this game in terms of just another thing that I would just add to their side of positive attributes and stuff is that this game means a lot for them, because in order for them to have, they're tied with USC record wise in the Pac-12 South right now. And in order for them to have a shot at a Pac-12 championship, Colorado is going to have to show up and show up, win this game, because then they've got Utah next week on Friday here in Boulder. That is they have to win out, and they need USC to lose one of their next two games in order for them to have a shot, because there's no head-to-head matchup between the two, and USC's got the AP advantage on Colorado. And so that was one thing that me and Jason were talking a lot about, is that in order for the Buffs to even be in the discussion, have a discussion about a Pac-12 championship, they have to win out. And so I'm hoping that is on the mind of our players going into this game. So it's just, go into Tucson, get business done, get out, and then be able to, start looking ahead to a Utah team that didn't even play their first two games of the season and stuff. And so, I'm hoping that will motivate our players to show up and be disciplined and, play the kind of game that they need to. But Colorado's also not, averse to playing down to the level of their opponents, certainly historically. And so it's the kind of thing where that could also, easily keep Arizona in this game. And obviously we know that COVID has just thrown such a wrench in the college football season that it's sort of leveled the playing field, across the board in terms of how teams manage to play and stuff. And, as you said, home field versus away really having an advantage is sort of taken out of the picture. And, there's a lot less to really be able to make any sort of accurate prediction on these days. And so, I'm hoping that will help fire up the Buffs to get a win in Tucson, but you never know.
It's weird. This game kind of has a feel of this could be a big game. Like you were just talking about how important this game is for Colorado. This is a pretty big game for Arizona too. Like they're on a 10-game losing streak. They got to cut this off right now, because guys are leaving. Guys are starting to doubt this program, and it's spiraling to the ground right now. And if they don't win again here, and it's another, Arizona could easily go 0-5 and 0-6 for the rest of the season. They need this win to at least save the season somehow. But I think this really has this big game feel, and I think it'll be an interesting one for sure.